wish to start by thanking Jesus for his invitation and the invitation of the organising committee to attend this auspicious meeting. The two previous talks provided a nice lead-in to my talk, the historical talk and the one on the new SI. In particular, the one on the new SI presented the new SI definitions, which are underpinned by the fundamental constants. The quality of the values of those constants are quantified by measurement uncertainty. Measurement uncertainties, of course, is used to quantify the quality of all sorts of quantities occurring across science and technology. So measurement uncertainty is fundamental to our work. The GUM, a lot of you realise what the GUM conveys. It's the Guide to the Expression of Uncertainty Measurement. It has a relatively short history, although metrology has been going a long time, since 1875. Quantifying uncertainty has only been going since 1993, when the GUM was first issued. But a lot has happened since then, and a lot is happening particularly now. And so I want to update you what's happening in the world of uncertainty. So the outline of the talk is as follows. I want to give some background to the GUM to bring us all up to speed, so we're all aware of what the GUM means and the background to the GUM and the GUM-related documents. The JCGM, the Joint Committee for the Guides in Metrology, as mentioned by Jesus, is the committee that's responsible for the GUM and related documents. The part of the GUM that many of us are familiar with in formulating uncertainty budgets is the law of propagation of uncertainty. But also the GUM Supplement 1 and Supplement 2, as mentioned by Jesus, goes further. It propagates distributions rather than simply uncertainties. And so it gives us a more general way of propagating uncertainties. I should mention that. I should give the user and the JCGM viewpoints on various aspects of measurement of uncertainty, and then I'll speak about the GUM new perspective, which is a new paradigm for uncertainty evaluation. I'm going to talk about the current documents in existence relating to measurement uncertainty and the documents being planned. We have something called grandfathering, and I'll mention that later. And I'll mention the role of a new European project which starts in July, which aims to develop a lot of new examples to support the GUM and the other documents. How did it all start? Well, as I mentioned, it started in 1993, where a harmonised way of expressing and evaluating measurement uncertainty was issued in print. The Guide to the Expression of Uncertainty Measurement, the GUM. And the GUM says, I quote, "When reporting the result of a measurement of a physical quantity, it's obligatory that some quantitative indication of the quality of the result is given so that those who use it can assess its reliability." It's an obvious statement. It's obvious today, but it wasn't so obvious in 1993. The GUM covers concepts, principles, definitions and guidance on measurement uncertainty evaluation, including establishing the coverage or confidence interval. The propagation of measurement uncertainty is based on Gauss's formula. It's really a linearization, based on the linearization of the measurement model. What came after that? Until the GUM supplements were issued, I think one was in 2008, one was in 2011, the GUM was the ultimate resource that everybody who wanted to carry out measurement uncertainty according to recognised international principles utilised. So GUM Supplement 1 uses a Monte Carlo method to propagate distributions. And gum supplement 1, in a sense, has become the gold standard to compare the use of the gum, which admittedly has approximations involved in it. Since then, in 2011 in fact, gum supplement 1 was extended. It was extended to cover implicit models, not y is a function of x, but some function of x and y equals 0, for instance. It also extended to cover complex models, so our electrical engineering friends it could cover electrical measurement, which involves a lot of complex quantities. It also covered multiple measurands, that is, when we have more than one output quantity. That's gum supplement 2. Other documents published by the JCGM included an introduction to measurement uncertainty and other documents. One particular document was the role of measurement uncertainty in conformity assessment. I shall refer to that later. The JCGM documents are available at no cost on the website mentioned there, and it's credit to their usefulness. There are some 6,000 downloads per month on average of the JCGM documents. Uncertainty propagation in a nutshell. The box here indicates two measurands, y1 and y2, as a function of three independent quantities, three input quantities, I beg your pardon. And so if we have little x1, little x2, little x3 as estimates of those input quantities, then we have ux1, ux2, ux3 as associated standard uncertainties, we can propagate to provide an estimate for the measurand, y, and the associated covariance matrix, uy, which contains the variances or squared standard uncertainties, and also the covariance between, in this case, the two quantities. If we have mutually dependent input quantities, it's a little more complicated, but we can go through the same procedure. As I said, the gum makes assumptions. It only works with a single scalar output quantity, like E equals mc squared. E is a single quantity. The value of the output quantity is given very simply. It's given by evaluating the measurement model at the estimates of the input quantities. And that's not always the best thing to do. It linearizes the model, which is, it has to because it uses the law of propagation uncertainty, which relies on the linearized model. And for purposes of providing coverage intervals or confidence intervals, the gum makes an assumption that the output quantity can be described by a normal distribution by appealing to the central limit theorem, or a t-distribution with degrees of freedom which can be inferred from the computation. It makes a big difference. On the other hand, the propagation distribution starts with distributions of the input quantities. Again, I've indicated three input quantities, one having a normal distribution, one having a triangular distribution, and one having a rather narrower normal distribution. And depending on what the measurement model is, the output distribution can take almost any form. It may be normal, it might be Rayleigh, it might be triangular, it might be anything. The gum assumes the output distribution is normal or underpinned by a t-distribution. And the estimate of the output quantity is taken by the expectation of the output probability distribution. And its standard uncertainty is taken as a standard deviation of that distribution. A simple example, the electrical engineering community often work to convert Cartesian to polar coordinates, or in other words, evaluate the magnitudes of some quantity. So the measurement model here is R equals x1 squared plus x2 squared, all square rooted. The central limit theorem doesn't apply to this situation unless the uncertainties associated with the x's are very small. Even if x1 and x2 are normally distributed, R will not be normally distributed although it be approximately normally distributed for small input uncertainties. And so if we assume normality, if we assume the law of propagation of uncertainty holds, we might get the wrong answer, particularly if the input uncertainties are large. In the picture there, you can see two output distributions. The red output distribution is a distribution obtained by using the gum, assuming normality. The green distribution is a distribution obtained by applying gum supplement 1 using a Monte Carlo method. You can see the distributions are very different in character, and by the red and the green dots, you can see the estimate produced using the normal distribution of the output quantity and the estimate of the output quantity produced using the propagation distributions. And you see the estimates are quite different, and the standard uncertainties indeed are quite different. And in red horizontal line and green horizontal line, I've indicated the 95% confidence or coverage intervals, and you can see they're very different indeed. One important, very important feature is that the 95% coverage interval given by the gum, you can see extends below zero. But the quantity R is the square root of sum of squares, so it's never less than zero, never less than zero. But the 95% coverage interval given by the gum, in this instance, and this was a realistic instance given by my electrical engineering friends, the estimate, the coverage interval given by the gum is just 1. And so we can see there's a big advantage in turning to supplement 1 to the gum when it's necessary to do so. There's some uncertainty evaluation principles which can be called into play for almost any problem. Use available knowledge of the quantity of concern. Characterize the quantity by a distribution that captures that knowledge. Take the expectation and standard deviation, as I've mentioned, as the estimate of the quantity and the standard uncertainty. Use the PDF for the measurand to form coverage intervals. There's not a unique 95% coverage interval, because any coverage interval within the domain of the distribution that covers 95% of the values is a 95% coverage interval. Consider a symmetric distribution. For a symmetric distribution, look at the red distribution there. The 95% coverage interval we would naturally choose is the middle of all sets of 95% coverage intervals, naturally. But for the green distribution, we have a choice. We can choose a 95% interval squeezed up to the left-hand end, or squeezed to the right-hand end, or anywhere in between. We tend to choose the coverage interval that suits our purposes. The probabilistically symmetric, which has had 2.5% in each tail, or the shortest coverage interval. It's natural to produce the shortest coverage interval for many problems. The gum does one other thing. It discriminates between type A evaluation of uncertainty based on statistical means and type B evaluation of uncertainty based on non-statistical means, and treats them differently. An instance of type A uncertainty evaluation is the COVID instance. We have a set of n observations, little xi, with some quantity x, made up under identical conditions of measurement. An estimate, little x, of x is given by the arithmetic mean of the xi, the natural thing to do. The standard uncertainty, ux, is given by the standard error of mean. But that's a non-Bayesian solution. What a Bayesian would do is assume a distribution for which the xi are regarded as samples or draws. And he will derive the distribution from the mean and take its standard deviation as u of x. Under appropriate assumptions, we'll get the same answer as in the gum, but not in all circumstances. Type B uncertainty valuation, the simple instances of this, we might have lower and upper limits A and B for a certain quantity. These limits might be provided by an instrument manufacturer. You assign a distribution to X that respects that information. It's natural to assign a rectangular or uniform distribution. Any value between A and B is equally likely. Indeed, we can appeal to maximum entropy properties to obtain that. An estimate of X is taken as the middle point, the expectation A plus B over 2, and the standard uncertainty is taken as the standard uncertainty, which is given by the formula there. GUM treats type A evaluation and type B evaluation differently. What is the current situation with the JCGM documents? Incidentally, ISO also publishes the JCGM documents as ISO guides. And so if you're saying you're adhering to a JCGM document, you're also adhering to the corresponding ISO guide. There's an introductory document, a relatively short introductory document, which gives an introduction to measurement uncertainty and the measurement uncertainty to the JCGM documents. The current GUM is known as JCGM 100, and supplement 1 to the GUM is known as JCGM 101, supplement 2 is JCGM 102, which extends, as I say, the provisions of 101 to the multivariate case. There's also a conformity assessment document, which people like Eduardo will be pleased to hear is fully Bayesian. What are the benefits and properties? 101 and 102 are more Bayesian. They're not completely Bayesian, but they're more Bayesian than the GUM. Probability distributions are assigned to all input quantities based on the state of knowledge of those quantities. The probability distribution for the measurand, the output quantity, is produced, from which we obtain the best estimate and the standard uncertainty. The type A evaluation is thus brought into line with type B evaluation, which has been quite a criticism of the current GUM. 106, as I say, is fully Bayesian. We assign not only priors to the input quantities, we also assign a prior to the output quantity to the measurand based on state of knowledge, and go the same way as before. There have been recent surveys on the GUM and the other documents, and through those surveys we obtain the views of the user. We've also issued a proposed revised GUM using a more Bayesian treatment than the existing GUM. These surveys made a number of points. Some practitioners, only a few unfortunately, wanted a full Bayesian treatment. In general, there's very strong objection to use of a Bayesian treatment. It's interesting, if you look at the current GUM, there's more attention paid to type B evaluation of uncertainty, 3 pages, than to type A evaluation of uncertainty. Type A is frequentist in the GUM and type B is Bayesian. Many users wanted to keep the current GUM exactly as it stands because they said it works for me. And they had procedures in place, software already written, and so it's understandable they wanted to stick to the current GUM. What is the JCGM response in terms of the new structure? I'm going to talk about the new structure, the new paradigm, the new perspective. Our conclusion was we didn't listen closely enough to the end users before we started issuing these documents. Many wish to retain the current GUM. We have to take full account of their needs, what they want, and so being provide different documents for different purposes. Those users who want a simple treatment are happy with a simple treatment, and are content that it applies to their applications, we want to give them a simple document. Those users who have more complicated circumstances, we must give them the right documents that they can use in those circumstances. We realise this now, we didn't realise it before. So there's going to be a stronger focus. We're going to have an introduction to a suite of documents to assist users in selecting the guide which is fit for their purposes. And the current GUM is going to coexist alongside a Bayesian GUM. And so current users who think frequentistly can use the current GUM and say their results accord with the current GUM. Those metrologists and colleagues who want to do a fuller job can use the Bayesian GUM because it's more appropriate for their circumstances, can use this. And this coexistence is called by NIST grandfathering. And I'm afraid this term has caught on and we're using it now. There's the grandfathering. And so this is the current structure. What we're adding is a modelling document, a document to give users advice on how to model their measurement. And I'm pleased to say this document is in an advanced state of preparation and we hope it will be released this year. The revised GUM, don't ask me to explain the numbering of these documents, but the revised GUM, the Bayesian GUM, will be worked upon. We already have a version, we're going to improve that version. There's going to be a document on interlaboratory comparison. There's going to be an underpinning document explaining the concepts and the principles, particularly the Bayesian concepts. Finally, there's going to be a document on least squares, and Jesus has informed me in the car on the way here that that's a document that is needed. There's going to be a document on Bayesian methods in general, and there's going to be an examples document. I think the examples document is going to be one of the most important documents of all, because the examples document is envisaged it might contain some 30 or 40 examples from different branches of metrology. And the idea is we want users to examine those examples, to see which examples are closest to their applications and adapt those examples to their applications. I think, as I said, the examples document is going to be very important. That's a new structure that we're imposing. This is an aside. I had to include this because it's exciting to me. It might not be exciting to you, but that's for you to judge. Those of you who are familiar with the GUM know the coverage factor k equals 2 is very often taken and assumed. You use your uncertainty budget, you compute a standard uncertainty associated with measurement, and if you want a 95% coverage interval, you take plus or minus capital U about your estimate of the quantity, where capital U is given by 2 little u, twice the standard uncertainty. It's been, in other words, you use a coverage factor of k equals 2. It's been strongly challenged and counterexamples generated. It doesn't always work. However, a colleague in Denmark and I have obtained a large, very large amount of empirical evidence accumulating in strong support of k equals 2 giving 95% coverage. This statement applies to a linear or a linearized model, as in the GUM, and it applies where we take the standard deviation of the PDF for each input quantity as a standard uncertainty. For input quantities, we commonly used PDFs, rectangular, normal, T, U-shaped, and so on. Extensive simulations, many thousands of cases have supported that k equals 2 always, I've seen no exception, always gives at least 95% coverage. It's a remarkable result, but it substantiates, it supports what a lot of people have been doing for a long time. I could give another lecture on that, but I'm not going to. I had to give you that one slide to indicate this. But we've been attempting a mathematical proof, but we haven't succeeded yet, but we will. We will. I mentioned the examples document as being important. Indeed, I'm pleased to say I've just won a 3-year European contract starting in July this year to provide those examples. The coverage of this European project is calibration problems, testing problems, and comparison problems like key comparison problems. Also, conformity to regulation or specification. And the examples are going to be in major areas: environment, energy, quality of life, industry, and society. As I said earlier, many practitioners learn by example, and that's why we think this is going to be an important document. We're going to provide, through this European project, the examples to the JCGEM for their guides and their member organisations, and you can see the list of member organisations, very important bodies, using our documents. Indeed, 10 ISO committees are participating in this project, and so they'll improve their standards by means of this project. I'm going to run through quickly a few of the examples we intend to include. A lot of calibration labs use 2-point interpolation and multi-point interpolation of calibration data. And they apply law of propagation uncertainty in the gum. That's fine, but we want to verify the assumptions in the gum. And we want to say when Monte Carlo method should be used instead. We want to say when 2-point interpolation is adequate, when multi-point interpolation is necessary, and compare this possibly with the use of least squares instead of interpolation. We'll have at least 2 examples, one associated with measurement of hydrogen ion activity, pH measurement in other words, another one calibration of the mass spectrometer. And many of these examples will state how these concepts can be carried over to examples in other disciplines. The second example is single burning item reaction to fire test. And we only have one item, and we set fire to that item, and we investigate temperature distribution throughout a region, we investigate convection properties and so on. It's a difficult area because we can't repeat exactly the same measurement. And so we have to rely on past experience, empirical data, and so on. It's ideal for a Bayesian approach. Key comparison of gauge blocks. There's a lot of work being done on that, but it's normally using the gum, the original gum, but we want to employ the classical gum method and Bayesian methods to see whether there's any real difference for genuine examples and quantify, if there are benefits, quantify the benefits in the Bayesian approach. Tests and conformity for multi-component materials. I mentioned JCGEM 106, the conformity guide. That only considers one measure item. However, we have instances, real practical instances, in which we have multi-components, more than one measure item. An example we're going to work on with the Italian NMI concerns influenza medication. It contains various active and correlated components. We want to quantify the risk of making decision on a sample as a whole. We want to generalize a single component treatment in 106. Many problems involve images, 2D images or 3D images reconstructed from a sequence of 2D images, and pixelation or voxelation has an effect on the uncertainties. If you look at the top picture, that's meant to indicate a tumour, and the second picture is a pixelization of that tumour, a rather coarse pixelization. The bottom picture is a finer pixelization of that tumour. And so there is uncertainty introduced because of the pixelization. And the volume of the tumour, its uncertainty, will be influenced by the pixelization process. And from the initial study, it has a big effect on the final uncertainty. So that aspect must be taken into account. As far as we're aware, it's not taken into account very strongly at the moment. Liquid participation, it's a common problem, of course. We use rainfall gauges. They haven't changed much over the years. We use rainfall gauges to measure rainfall at certain points. And we want to know rainfall over a certain region in a certain period of time. Where the rain gauges are situated is an influence on the final result. And so the design of the placement of these rain gauges has an influence. And of course, we want to do the best we can. We want to inform water resources management companies. We want to increase the confidence of customers and so on. And so that's going to be useful. Example, we're collaborating with a civil engineering company on that. Contaminants in soil is another example. We've got LGC Limited, originally a laboratory of a government chemist, but one of the best chemical laboratories in the world on board. We want to look at the variability from sample to sample. We want to carry out evaluations on actual data and carry out evaluations on a replacement set of data and use analysis of variance techniques to learn about the final uncertainty. And the example of informed treatment and measurement uncertainty in environmental regulation. There's quite a concentration these days on energy efficiency for obvious reasons, and coupled with that is thermal comfort in buildings. There's an international standard on thermal comfort, and the international standard considers various quantities, input quantities such as metabolic rate, water vapor partial pressure, air temperature, and so on. And the output quantities are measurands of various thermal indices depending on measurements in empirical formulae. In some initial work, the PDF, assigning appropriate PDFs to the input quantities, the PDF for the output quantity is given in the diagram below. And if we're still in normality, we're going to be a long way from the truth. Hardness testing is another example. Minute volumes of flow, that's important. Imported in hospital, where we're delivering dose to an infant. Low levels of dose, microflows. And we've got to ensure accurate dose delivery. We want to ensure that the doses have small uncertainties associated with them. And that's a challenging problem, but an important one that we're going to address through these examples. We're working with Rolls-Royce, the aircraft engine manufacturer, and we're looking at a measurand which we can't directly access. We're talking about temperature within the engine, within the compressor. But you can make measurements at various points, and we've got to infer measurements at other points. And so it's a combination of measurement and simulation using suitable models. Doping control, we're working with the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. We're looking at test results related to the administration of ephedrine, which is a stimulant. Obviously, we want to have maximum concern with the control of doping, illegal substances and so on. The laboratories accredited by WADA may use any approach consistent with the GUM principles, and so they've chosen one particular approach. We want to study alternative approaches to see whether there may be benefits. So I conclude. I give an outline on the gum, and other JCGen measurement uncertainty documents. I mention the uncertainty of propagation, LPU, and the propagation distributions. I mention surveys which have been carried out to measurement uncertainty guides, and I've mentioned the proposed revised gum, which I must say has failed for the moment. I've mentioned the perspective of the user and perspective of the JCGen. I mentioned the gum new perspective. This is the way we plan to go. I've given you a flavour of the current and the plan documents. I mentioned the grandfathering concept, whereby the current gum sits alongside the revised gum. I mentioned Project EMU, which is going to provide more than 30 examples to the JCGen and ISO committees, and I've included several examples in this talk. Thank you for your considerations.
Tenemos tiempo para algunas preguntas. La pregunta es, ¿por qué se está todavía, por qué se está exigiendo e insistiendo en usar una media que no está realmente representando la distribución real? Cuando la distribución es asimétrica, se dieron cuenta cuando la distribución es asimétrica, los intervalos de cobertura van a estar completamente diferentes al propuesto por la GUM.
I understand the question, and I think we're going the right way. We use the expectation as the estimate of the measure end. We use the expectation of the distribution as the estimate of the measure end, but the GUM doesn't. The GUM doesn't. The GUM only deals with symmetric distributions. It assumes normality or a t distribution. The t distribution, of course, has fatter tails, but is still symmetric. And so the mean is equal to the expectation in that case, but in general it's not. As I illustrated in one of the pictures where I showed the normal distribution and the asymmetric distribution, we would of course use the expectation of that asymmetric distribution as the estimate of the quantity. Perhaps I didn't make that sufficiently clear at the time.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Bueno, si no hay preguntas, el doctor Cox está aquí, va a ir a comer con nosotros y pueden ustedes aproximarse a él. Démosle un aplauso, por favor. Mañana hay también otra plática que va a dar el doctor Cox sobre modelos de medición.